Well, hello there, and welcome in to another version of Tales from the Vault. I'm your host, Aunt Vicky. So glad you come by to spend the afternoon with me. Today's video is going to be what is referred to as the Bell Witch legend in Adams, Tennessee. Let's get into it. Today's episode is going to be about the Bell Witch in Adams, Tennessee. So, without further ado, let's get into this. No supernatural story in American history is more documented than that of the Bell Witch of Adams, Tennessee. In fact, tales of this spirit were so widespread in the early 1800s, they caught the attention of a general and future president, Andrew Jackson, who was from Nashville. What was the Bell Witch? Like most supernatural stories, certain details vary from version to version. The prevailing account is the Bell Witch claimed to be the spirit of Kate Batts, an otherwise unfriendly neighbor of John Bell's. However, no one really knows for sure. The Queen of the Haunted Dell image is the very famous picture of Betsy Bell, who was John Bell's youngest daughter. Betsy was one of the main targets of the Bell Witch for several years of her childhood. There are many ghost or haunting tales in American history, but none of them are more documented and evident as the Bell Witch. The human interactions with the spirit date back to 1817. On the banks of the Red River in Robertson County, Tennessee, lies a sleepy town of Adams, Tennessee, with a population of 624. You might think that the area often gets overlooked. However, for many decades, the town has captured the attention of ghost hunters, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts. From all over the world, it is the site of the infamous Bell Witch haunting. From 1817 to 1821, a man named John Bell and his family were harassed by a mysterious and invisible spirit, now known as the Bell Witch. According to the legend, the witch had the ability to speak, shape-shift, and be in multiple places at once. And at that time, the Tennessee frontier was a wilderness with dense forest as far as the eye could see. Neighboring family homes were usually miles apart from each other. The strange occurrences began at the Bell's family farm when John came across a dog-like creature. He fired his weapon at the animal, but it quickly vanished. Soon after the incident, strange disturbances started occurring in the family's home, with loud knocking noises, gnawing sounds, and the sound of a chain dragging across the floor. Eventually, the witch's activities became physical. It began striking, pinching, and pulling the hair of some of the family members. However, it was John Bell and his youngest daughter, Betsy, who received most of the onslaught. The witch began speaking and having full conversations with members of the family as well. Oftentimes, it directed its insults and threats at John Bell. When asked about who or what the witch was, it responded, "I am a spirit. I once was very happy, but I have been disturbed and made unhappy." Even the family's indentured servants reported strange happenings. One man named Dean said that he encountered the witch several times. He said that the witch usually took the form of a dog-like creature that sometimes had two heads. Dean admitted that soon after these encounters, he began carrying around a witch ball made by his wife to protect him from harm. Some of the family's neighbors and friends experienced unusual occurrences as well. One incident involved a family friend named William Porter, in which he supposedly grabbed a hold of the witch and attempted to throw the invisible entity into the fire. He was unsuccessful as the massive weight and terrible odor of the witch were too much for him to bear. After 3 years of non-stop attacks and harassment, John Bell's physical health started to decline. He became bedridden and eventually passed away in December 1820. His family believed that the Bell Witch had caused his passing by giving him some kind of poison. It was even said the witch had crashed his funeral and sang cheerful drinking songs during the ceremony. After his passing, the constant hauntings and harassments lessened, then eventually stopped altogether, just as mysteriously as they began. Since that time, the legend of the Bell Witch has lived on. While many view the story of the Bell Witch as a local folk tale, there are others who believe the hauntings did, in fact, take place and that there is still supernatural activity connected to the land. In late 1804 or early 1805, John Bell and his wife, Lucy Williams Bell, with their 6 children, settled near the banks of the Red River. For over a decade, the Bell family had a good life in their new Tennessee home. They knew some of their neighbors from North Carolina and met families they had not known before. With the labor of enslaved people, they cleared land and began farming, and their life changed. The first strange events began in 1817 and occurred outside the Bell house. This occurrence transpired as John Bell was walking in a cornfield close to his home. He saw a dog-like creature, unlike any he had ever seen before, sitting in a corn row looking at him. Because he did not recognize the animal, he raised his weapon and fired at it. He felt sure that he had hit the creature, even so it ran off unharmed. Not long afterward, his son Drury also saw a strange-looking creature he had not seen before. It appeared to be a turkey, but larger than any turkey he had ever seen. He ran to the house and retrieved his weapon. By the time he got back to the field, the extraordinary large fowl was flying away. In both cases, father and son assumed that because they were living in a new part of the world, it was logical that they would see animals that they hadn't seen in North Carolina. And then Betsy saw the young girl hanging from a tree. She made out a pretty young girl in a green dress, swinging from a rope from a limb of one of the oak trees close to the house. She tried to communicate with the young girl, but received no response. She went to the house to get family members to witness the sighting, but when they returned to the tree, the girl in the green dress was gone. There was worse to come. Soon after the sighting, things began to happen in the Bell home. Family members began hearing strange sounds, soft whisperings, slight knocking on doors and windows, choking and strangling, and gentle rat-like scratching. They repeatedly searched for the source of the noises, especially when they grew louder and started to keep them awake at night. Even so, they could not discover the origin of the disturbances. Then things got worse. The rat gnawing sound started on their bedposts, which made it harder to sleep. They heard wings flapping on the ceiling, chains being dragged across the floors, and loud invisible dog fights inside the house. When family members finally fell asleep, their bed covers would be mysteriously pulled off each of them, especially Betsy. Just when the Bell family thought things couldn't get any worse, the physical assaults began. The spirit, as the malevolent entity came to be known, was especially cruel to John Bell Sr. and Betsy. Sons Joel and Richard were harassed to a lesser degree. The spirit was easier on John Jr. and showed affection and respect for Lucy. When it began verbally communicating with people, the spirit said that Lucy was the most perfect woman living. The spirit never gave a clear explanation for why it haunted the family, but it became clear it hated John Bell and Betsy. The spirit regularly called John Old Jack Bell and menaced him with profanity, curses, and threats. Soon after the hauntings began, he started to have trouble speaking, eating, and swallowing. He said it felt like he had a stick of wood lodged between both cheeks of his mouth. This agony would plague him until his passing. The spirit often threatened John Sr. When the spirit was asked why, it would answer, because he deserves unaliving. No other explanation was given. Apart from the father, Betsy was subjected to the most torment. The spirit would prick her with invisible pins and cause great pain. He would also slap Betsy until her face was red and drag her across the room by her hair. This assault happened repeatedly. Combs would fly out of Betsy's hands and hair. The family was afraid the spirit would unalive Betsy, and so they sent her to a friend's house to spend the night. Many of those nights were spent at Thorn's house. The spirit would follow Betsy to the Thorne household. One night, Deanie chided the spirit for its actions. The spirit responded with crude, loud laughter. An itinerant witch doctor gave Betsy a potion that would cure her from her affliction. Instead, Betsy vomited pins as the spirit laughed. Perhaps the cruelest thing that the spirit did to Betsy concerned her affections for Joshua Gardner. The Gardners were neighbors of the Bells, and Betsy and Joshua were sweethearts. When the spirit found this out, it started chanting, "Please, Betsy, please don't marry Joshua Gardner." This incantation went on for several months, and out of fear, Betsy ended her relationship with Joshua. This encounter would become one of the best-known stories about the Bell Witch. The spirit did not pay much attention to Joel and Richard William, and only tormented them on occasion. It repeatedly pulled the covers off them, especially on cold nights, and usually with a cackle. On one night, they were alone in their bedrooms when the spirit again pulled the covers off them. Joel lost his temper and spoke harshly to it. The spirit spit on him, causing Richard William to utter angry words. Joel had to watch as helplessly while the spirit spanked his brother. John Bell Jr. and the spirit often had deep intellectual conversations. He often called the spirit of the damned. Even so, the spirit did not harm him. Instead, it would give him good advice, which he usually ignored. After a while, the spirit would take a break from hurting the Bell family and would have conversations with them. On one occasion, John Jr. was discussing a trip by horseback he was going to take to North Carolina to settle some family business. The spirit broke the conversation and told John Jr. that it would be a wasted trip as the matter had already been settled. She also advised him that a rich woman was on her way to Robertson County to visit friends. Because both were unmarried, they could meet and would make a good couple. He went anyway. The trip was wasted, and he might well have missed the love of his life. When Lucy complained to the spirit about his treatment of her family, he would reply that although it hurt her family, it would never hurt her. When Lucy fell ill with pleurisy, an illness that made her bedridden and could have taken her life, the spirit talked to her in a soft, kind voice and brought her grapes, even though they were out of season. It knew Lucy loved to eat grapes. It would also drop grapes onto the bed when Lucy had company. The spirit also knew Lucy liked hazelnuts. It would drop nuts from the ceiling onto Lucy's bed. Lucy said that she could not eat the nuts because she could not crack them. Immediately, cracked nuts fell on the bed. John Bell was born in Halifax County, North Carolina in 1750, the son of William Bell and Ann Jones. In 1782, John married Lucy Williams, the daughter of a prominent farmer, John Williams of Edgecombe County, North Carolina. The Bells bought a farm in Edgecombe County and began amassing wealth and influence in the area. In 1804, the family consisted of John and Lucy Bell and their children, Jesse, John Jr., Drury, Benjamin, Esther, Zadok, Zadok, Elizabeth, Betsy, Richard William, and Joel Egbert. They built a house and started a farm on 1,000 acres located on the Red River. One of their children, Benjamin, passed as a young child. Zadok became a prominent lawyer and moved to Mississippi, where he also passed relatively young. Esther married Bennett Porter in 1871. Jess married Martha Gunn, daughter of Reverend Thomas Gunn, and later moved to Mississippi. John Jr. married Elizabeth Gunn, also the daughter of Reverend Thomas Gunn, and became a successful farmer in Robertson County. Drury never married and owned a farm on the north side of the Red River. Elizabeth Betsy Bell eventually married her former teacher, Richard Powell, and moved to Mississippi. Richard Williams Bell was married 3 times, to Sally Gunn, daughter of Reverend Thomas Gunn, Susan Gunn, daughter of James Gunn, and Eliza Orndorff. He lived out his life in Robertson County. The youngest, Joel Egbert, married twice and moved to Springfield. Despite the lasting impact of what the Bells termed our family trouble, the family continued to flourish and descendants of the Bell family still live in Tennessee and other southern and midwestern states. The spirit was also rumored to say, when asked who it was, "I am the spirit of a person who was buried in the woods nearby, and the grave was disturbed. My bones disinterred and scattered, and one of my teeth was lost under this house. I am looking for that lost tooth." Of course, this cannot be verified. However, a number of Native American burial mounds can be found in the region. In other events, the witch claimed to be a spirit from everywhere: heaven, hell, the earth, in the air, the houses, any place at any time. I have been created millions of years. On one of the most famous occasions, the witch recited perfectly the sermon of Reverend James Gunn of Bethel Methodist Church, followed by the sermon of Sug Fort, despite the fact that they had originally been given at the same time, more than 12 miles apart. The witch had a disdain for the family slaves, tormenting them relentlessly, beating them, and refusing them into the house. Visitors and neighbors were not immune from the witch's antics either. In one instance, the witch set 3 dogs, Caesar, Tig, and Bulger, on traveling shakers who never traveled by the farm again. In another instance, Dr. Mize, a noted conjurer from Simpson, Kentucky, came to exorcise the witch and was mocked and frightened away. On December the 19th, 1820, John Bell Sr. failed to leave his bed, and John Jr. went to the cupboard to retrieve the medicine for his care. Instead of the 3 medicine vials, he found only 1 vial. It was 1/3 full of a dark, smoky liquid of unknown origin. The voice of the witch gloated, "It's useless for you to try to relieve old Jack. I have got him this time. He will never get up from that bed again." She claimed the vial that she gave old Jack a big dose of last night while he was fast asleep, which fixed him. The contents of the vial were thrown into the fire and erupted into a blue blaze. Legend has it that the Bell Witch even had an encounter with a future president, Andrew Jackson. Jackson owned property on Red River and desired to visit the Bell farm after hearing the stories. One of his wagons became stuck by an unseen force and could not be moved, despite urging the horses, examining the wheels, and having it pushed by the men in his party. He exclaimed, "By the eternal, boys, this is the witch." To which the witch replied, "All right, General. Let the wagon move on. I will see you again tonight." The wagon started on its own accord, and they continued on their journey. That evening at camp, a self-proclaimed witch layer, or witch hunter, said he had silver ammo and regaled the men with tales of hunting witches. Jackson whispered to his colleague, "I'll bet this fellow is an arrant coward. By the eternals, I wish the thing would come. I want to see him run." After which silence followed. Suddenly, there was the sound of light footsteps prancing on the floor, and the voice stated, "All right, General. I am on hand and ready for business." The witch told the hunter to fire his weapon, but it would not fire. The hunter was struck by an unseen force, claimed to feel the pain of being stuck by pins, and exclaimed he had been grabbed by the nose and fled from the tent. The witch exclaimed, "How the devil did run and beg. I will bet he won't come through here again with his old horse to get me. I guess that's fun enough for one night. General, you can go to bed now. I will come tomorrow night and show you another rascal in this crowd." Jackson was eager to stay, but his party had enough, and Jackson returned to Nashville shortly thereafter. Mary Catherine Kate Batts passed after 1847. The wife of Frederick Batts was believed by many to have been the culprit behind the disturbances known as the Bell Witch. Although not a poor woman, she was often mocked by others throughout the Red River settlement in Robertson County. Her improper usage of words, along with her sometimes strange ways, led many to think she was practicing black magic or other forms of the occult. In the early years of the century, Benjamin Batts, the brother of Frederick Batts, had a dispute with John Bell over the sale of slaves. Facts over the dispute were later tangled and became the source of a rumor to the effect that John Bell and Kate Batts had the quarrel, and that the Bell Witch was created by Kate Batts to get revenge on Bell. While there are plenty of stories connecting the Bell Witch to Kate Batts and some sort of disagreement that existed between her and John Bell, recent evidence suggests that she had nothing to do with it. In fact, contrary to reports of her claiming that she would get even with John Bell on her passing, Kate Batts actually outlived John Bell by many years. Today, there are many descendants of the Batts family living in Cheatham, Montgomery, and Robertson County. Though it played a relatively minor role in the original Bell Witch legend of the early 19th century, the cave on John Bell's property has since become a focal point for visitors hoping to experience a bit of haunting themselves. This cave has been associated with the haunting of the Bell Witch, a period during which the Bell family was allegedly haunted by an entity now referred to as the Bell Witch. The cave is located on property once owned by the Bell family. Many believe that when the witch departed the family, she fled to the sanctuary of this cave. In the particular legend in which the cave is featured, young Betsy Bell and some of her friends had gone to explore the cave. While they were there, one of the boys crawled into a hole and became stuck. A voice cried out, "I'll get him out." The boy felt hands grasping his feet, and he was pulled out of the hole. The supposed entity, still invisible, then gave the young explorers a lecture on reckless cave exploring. John Bell's passing was attributed to the Bell Witch, making Tennessee the only state to recognize a person's passing to the supernatural. The Bell Witch was also known for her accurate predictions of the future and her vows to John Bell's children of her return in future years. Some stories that involved John Bell and Kate Batts, they allegedly had an affair for some time and John Bell eventually broke it off. Another one is after years of torment, Bell unalived Kate slowly. He locked her in the cellar and starved her. She made predictions at the Civil War, the World Wars. She talked about the end of time, how the earth was going to be destroyed. So after the passing of John Bell, the witch left. But she vowed to return after 7 years. She did, in fact, return after 7 years. Not only is the Bell Witch haunting the most widely documented paranormal event, the case of the Bell Witch is also the only time a passing has been officially attributed to a supernatural entity. The site of the occurrence on the Bell Farm is also considered to be one of the most haunted places in America even today. The scariest thing about the Bell Witch story is not that the entity terrorized a family, or not that the spirit was held accountable for the passing of John Bell. The scariest thing is that so many people have taken the story so seriously. It's not just a story, it's a well-documented event reported by a multitude of people, many of them hearing the voices of the entity or hearing scratches and knocks. Others reported seeing the strange animals on the property and floating orbs of light in the surrounding woods. The cave is 500 feet long, sitting on the Bell property. The family were considered quiet and respectful folks and often attended Red River Baptist Church, where John was a deacon. Andrew Jackson was reported to have said, "I'd rather face the entire British Army than to spend another night with the Bell Witch." When John married Lucy in 1782, she was just 12 years old, and he was 32. Lucy remained on the homestead until her passing in 1838. She is buried on the family plot in Bell City Cemetery near Adams, along with her late husband and some of her children. John Bell's funeral was one of the largest ever recorded in Robertson County. People gathered from all over to see the man who had allegedly been unalived by the Bell Witch. The historic Bell Witch Cave Incorporated has preserved some of the artifacts from the original Bell cabin, such as a chimney stone and an old kettle. It was reported the Bells used the cave for refrigeration. That is the story of the Bell Witch in Robertson County, Adams, Tennessee. This is a story I have heard all of my life. I even had a friend who worked at a children's hospital. She was a nurse, and she said she visited there. And she said, if you go, do not remove anything from the site or you will be tortured. I mean, don't remove a rock, don't remove a leaf, don't remove anything, or you will be tortured. So I hope you enjoyed this tale of the Bell Witch. Tune in next week as I share another story. I'm not sure yet what it'll be, but I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to like, to subscribe, to hit that notification button, and to share this video. Until next time, Tales from the Vault. Bye.